Now back to Inside Real Estate. Here's Mike the Realtor.
Hey folks, we are back inside real estate, sports, entertainment, politics. How we doing out there? Hey, happy Sunday again, folks. Hey, guess what? Politics and entertainment segment coming up right here, right now. We have on the line with us Gary Byrne, author of Crisis of Character. Gary, are you on the line with us?
I am, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing over there?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Let's kind of start at the front with this a little bit.
Sure.
Give the folks a little bit of information about your background, military, career law enforcement, and then kind of moving forward a little bit in time. Let's give them a little bit of background before we get into the book.
Sure. I started with the U.S. Air Force in the early 80s. And then I was 12 years in the Secret Service Uniform Division in Washington, D.C. at the White House. And then my last 13 years of federal law enforcement, I was served as a federal air marshal. I switched over from the Secret Service Uniform Division to the Federal Air Marshal Service after we were attacked on 9/11. I felt my skills would be in better use there. And I just retired in March from the Federal Air Marshal Service.
Very good. Let's talk about let's give this difference to the folks, because I know there's a lot of folks out there that may not know the difference between Secret Service agent and Secret Service officer, and then kind of what else goes on with the Secret Service. Let's give them that perspective real quick.
Sure, my pleasure. So the Secret Service is run by the agents, and then inside the Secret Service there's other divisions, and the division I was in is called the Uniform Division. And we're uniformed police officers that travel around the country and the world with the president, and they provide metal detector protection for the president and the first family. They also provide protection at the White House, the vice president's residence. They're the armed police officers you see securing the White House. They do the counter sniper teams. They do the K-9 bomb sniffing teams. And they do the emergency response teams at the White House and the vice president's residence.
Perfect. And I think that's some of the things that people need to know. I know you were on Hannity the other day, and also Alex Jones, and
yes,
great interviews there. I ordered the book off Amazon. I bought it. I read it cover to cover, as I do for all the books and all the authors that I have on the show.
Thank you.
Great book. Glad you're on the show. A lot of folks have said that this was a hit piece on the Clintons, and by no means was it a hit piece on the Clintons at all. In fact, it really was truly your story, your life story, and it was very apt what you said in the Hannity interview, which was, look, this is my life story. It just happens to intersect with the Clintons, and I felt that when I was reading the book.
Yes. People have to realize, especially, when you hear people criticizing the book and my timing, the reason that I have this great story to tell and the way it intersected with the Clintons is really of no fault of mine other than I joined the Secret Service. It was President Clinton and Mrs. Clinton that behaved the way they did and put myself and my fellow Uniform Division and Secret Service agents in positions that we were to testify against them. It wasn't our doing; it was their doing.
Sure, absolutely. In the book, you paint a very clear picture, between the previous administration with Bush's, and then as the Clintons come in, and not so much all about the Clintons, but the Clinton staffers and
Sure.
the Clinton machine. Very regal, very presidential. The Bush administration, the Clinton administration, very loosey-goosey. And just loose all around. And you cite examples of safes being open, top secret information, various information readily available, not locked up in the safes. Just kind of a loose administration.
It was at first, especially with some of the new employees that they brought in with them. Everybody wants to work at the White House and have all that excitement, but sometimes they don't realize the enormous responsibility that it is, controlling classified information and following rules and guidelines and And actually, as you know, some of the stories I tell in there are actually kind of humorous. The Glock in the sock and that type of thing. So
yeah, that was hilarious, and I can imagine, you guys talking about that all the time, joking about that later on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. You said in the book, you mentioned it, and this was obviously known back then as well. And the FBI kind of operated there for a while as their own private security firm as far as checking people out. There was over 900 illegal background checks.
Yes, I had the unique position when I worked outside the Oval Office. All the people that work at the White House, employees, military, whoever, they get the benefit of at certain times during the evenings they can bring their guests or friends to do tours of the Oval Office outside the Oval Office. And that's how I got to meet some of the FBI agents that worked there and a couple other people. And yeah, I used to hear, we would talk amongst ourselves, and they would ask me how things, how stressful or what crazy things were going on my side, by the Oval Office. And then in turn, they would tell me of the things where, like Mrs. Clinton and the administration there, President Clinton's administration and the First Lady, just didn't understand that the FBI wasn't this private security firm. You could just pick up the phone and ask for something. And eventually it blew up in their face. And again, because they can't follow the guidelines of the law and the rules, there's another scandal, just one scandal after the next. It's just insane when you think back on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of us have slept for the last 20 years a little bit. And, a lot of this is kind of rehashing and bringing back so many things of what all did happen back then. And,
right.
But at the end of the day, I mean, the people elected him not only to the governor's mansion in Arkansas, the people of Arkansas, but, we elected him twice here to the presidential office as well.
We did.
Pretty wild.
It is. And that's the thing. And I want your audience to understand this. I didn't particularly agree with the Clintons' politics, but you set that aside. That has nothing to, and writing my book really has nothing to do with the politics so much as I just want to tell the truth. But when you're in the Secret Service, whether it's an agent or a uniform division, you're protecting the person that's holding that office. And you do it to the best of your ability, and you do it with your life if you have to. And I certainly believed it then, and I still believe it now. It wasn't easy telling this part of my life because I am kind of talking out of school, but I think it's so important for the American people to know what the real Clinton machine is like. And that if she ends up getting elected, Mrs. Clinton ends up getting elected, we're going to have 4 to 8 more years of what her husband's administration was like, which was one scandal to the next. I mean, you couldn't put these scandals on 2 pieces of paper, single space. It's just incredible.
Yeah, it really is. And honestly, it brings up another question for me personally, and I'm sure a lot of other people out there as well. And that is, and I know the ship has sailed, but should a spouse of a president be allowed to run for office, any office? Obviously, she was Secretary of State and then senator in New York, but that ship sailed a bit. But should a spouse be able to run for office, particularly presidential office? That could be 16 years that essentially the same family could be in office. I mean, we're almost looking at like king and queen here. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the way our laws are written, I think the only guideline, and I think we got this out of the Kennedy administration after JFK appointed his brother, the Attorney General. It's just that she can't, like, if Mrs. Clinton became president, she couldn't turn around and officially appoint the former President Bill Clinton, to a cabinet member or a position. But you're right; it is a kind of a strange thing where it's a dynasty that I'm not sure is such a good thing for the American people.
Yeah, I would agree. Let's talk about the morale a little bit. The morale within the Secret Service in all of the divisions, particularly those that operate within the White House and had close proximity to the Clintons and the administration. You talked about how morale was so bad, and at one point, some 300 agents, moved off to the Air Marshal Service, but that was. Right. That was even after Bush Younger took office a couple years into his term, his first term. Is it something that was not only morale was an issue under the Clintons, but it was just an issue overall. I mean, it was an issue of pay, the positions, and also, I mean, there's extreme stress that goes along with this position because not only, are you in tight quarters all the time, but you're forced to watch a marriage up close in a lot of cases, and that is stressful as well. Sure,
you kind of hit the nail on the head. So one of the reasons I left and a lot of my coworkers left is because, and transferred to the Air Marshal Service, was for many, many years before that, the Secret Service has a very important job, and generally speaking, it's a good agency to work for. But they have a management problem. They've been using the same management technique for probably 75 years, which basically boils down to do as I say, not as I do, and or they use the terminology, that's the way we've always done it. And basically, in the uniform division, I can tell you, when I was there, the uniform division manpower ceiling was about 1,000. And I will tell you that we needed about 1,500 people. They have this mentality where it's cheaper for them to have to work 5 people to do the work of 10 as opposed to hiring the extra people and paying them benefits. So they just work the people that they have into the ground. Just to give you an example, my last year in the Secret Service Uniform Division, my base pay would have been about $55,000 a year. I made $72,000 that year without volunteering for 1 hour of overtime. That was all forced overtime. And guys get fed up with it. And when we had the opportunity to transfer to the Air Marshal Service for better pay and a better retirement, we've been listening to the senior agents that managed us all these years who said, if you don't like it, quit. So we did. We transferred over and we left. And they lost about 300 people in the first year of the Air Marshal Service, 300 uniform division officers.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I think it's kind of indicative also of what's going on in corporate as well. So many people are unemployed. So many jobs are either sent overseas or sent to a computer, if you will. You would think, within, particularly right there, they would want to take care of you guys because you are closely taking care of them and protecting them, from potentially life-threatening situations.
Sure. The way the employees of the Secret Service are treated really ultimately comes down to the senior management of the Secret Service. And clearly for, one or two of the directors we had in my time there, they were, especially one in particular, was kind of hostile towards, or appeared to be hostile towards the uniform division. And I actually talk about it in my book, Crisis of Character, where the uniform division wouldn't give the agents control over this benefit fund that we had, where we sold shirts and hats, and then the money we used to help the officers in the uniform division, they couldn't get control of that, so they had us kicked out of the White House. And that's just one of the examples of this, mentality that I talk about in my book, Crisis of Character, of if we can't have it, then you can't have it either. And they're very vindictive and retaliatory in their management style. Now, I will say that the director they have now seems to be trying to fix some of that. But over the years, they've had a lot of problems, and it's cost them a lot of manpower.
Yeah, that is amazing to me with that type of almost the most important, law enforcement piece that we have in America, securing the president and the family, that it's mismanaged that way. Although I'm not surprised, and I think many are not surprised because, honestly, government doesn't do very much well anyway. So why would they do that well as well? But I want to get to a couple questions that I have for you.
Sure.
So let's get into this, the sex scandals part of it. Look, Bill Clinton, sex scandals while he was in the governor's mansion, while he's in the presidential office. None of that is new to anybody. What I am curious about is it presents a situation once you get really to the governor's mansion, or even more so into the Oval Office, the security risk of behavior that is outside of your marriage, having affairs. You've got the typical risk, which is, a jilted mistress. Maybe she wants to get back at you physically, kill you, and then kill herself, that type of thing. But then, maybe more importantly, also potentially a foreign agent or even a corporate agent just trying to get information. Has his behavior in the Oval Office, did it change policies at all within the Secret Service to how do we deal with this? Obviously, there was policies to deal with, keep the other spouse away while he's maybe interacting, inappropriately somewhere.
Right.
But more importantly, is there a process, where it's okay, we need to vet who the president is with? I mean, he's not going to be the first who is going to have affairs. He's not going to be the last. So,
right.
From securing the secrets that are within the White House as well as the president himself, what do we do there?
Well, I get exactly what you're saying, and it's funny. I always thought, like, when it became to me that Monica Lewinsky had more on her mind than being an employee of the White House. It did occur to me because I'm an old, I was in the Air Force during the Cold War, so I have that Cold War mentality also. And my first thought in my mind was, how do we know who she is? Now, I can't tell you if anybody high up in the Secret Service ever did any further check on her to see who she was when they realized what was going on. I don't know that they did. If somebody came out and said they did, it wouldn't surprise me. But it's not the Secret Service's job to tell the protectees who they can and can't, socialize or however you want to put it with, whether it's just social or having an affair with. I know that sounds bizarre, but then again, there's many bizarre things that the first Clinton administration brought us, and that's one of my fears that the second Clinton administration will bring us more and more bizarre things to have to think about and talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, it's just a security concern. I mean, in spycraft, I mean, it's called the classic honey trap. So,
right. Exactly.
And it's employed. We employ it. Our own CIA employs it overseas.
Sure.
Other agencies employ it. I mean,
right.
It's not like because the president of the United States is the president of the United States that he's immune from that type of operation. And I think with his proclivities, shown both at the governor's level and at the presidential level, that it's a very high security concern. Yeah,
I saw that myself, and I think I talk a little bit about it in the book, but I certainly it was definitely one of my fears. And then the other thing that you brought up was, what if because of these affairs, we actually discussed myself, other officers and agents. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that, an official memo came from the top down, but the guys, the working agents on the detail and the officers that worked in the West Wing and the mansion discussed these things. Or what if the First Lady caught the president in an affair and there was a domestic dispute over it? And because as I detail in my book, Crisis of Character, there are some examples of her becoming violent. So angry that she starts to become dangerous, or could become dangerous in certain situations. So there was definitely something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, how to handle domestic issues. Another question for you. What did you think, or have you heard anything about Loretta Lynch, the meeting on the tarmac with former President Bill Clinton?
Actually, I have thought about it, and I've been asked a couple questions about it. And as soon as I heard what happened, and I've read about it, followed the details on the news, I will tell you it looked very, very familiar to me. And I actually tell this story in my book, Crisis of Character, when my coworkers and myself are testifying. One of my coworkers one day, he's still working in the West Wing, and after we're all just about done testifying to Judge Starr during the Lewinsky investigation, this guy gets a phone call one morning from the chief at like 6 o'clock in the morning. He says, "Hey, listen, I just got a call. You need to go down, to where you were testifying. They need you for 2 hours, and then you're going to come back, and then that's it." So he did what he was told to do. When he comes back, the West Wing receptionist says, "Hey, this is a little odd, but the president was looking for you." And he goes, "Really?" And then a couple of minutes later, President Clinton comes walking into the West Wing lobby. "Hey, how you doing? How was your morning this morning?" And we looked at this. Now, don't get me wrong. Bill Clinton was not rude to us, and he was like when he was walking through the mansion or he walked by your post or saw you, he would say hi. He was very polite. But the fact that he came and looked for this guy on the day that he was giving testimony in a criminal case against him, I mean, we looked at it as a form of soft intimidation. And that's what I see with this meeting with the Attorney General. To me, this is pure President Clinton. He planned this. He could get it. The information that she was going to be there, he could easily obtain that. He planned this, and he walked his way onto that plane to let her know that, I have no idea what they talked about, but to me, it's a soft form of intimidation. And the optics are horrendous. But it's pure Clinton machine. We'll get the message across one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. I was kind of inclined to agree, and I think a lot of people are as well. I mean, the optics at least look horrible, and at worst, it's like, hey, by the way, this is going to go our way, right?
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know what was said, and although President Clinton, everybody always gives him these accolades of being so intelligent, and I'm sure he is. He is a very smart man. But of course, when it comes to his behavior with women, he's got issues. But set that aside. This guy knows about everything there is about the law. And I say this a little bit jokingly, not just because he's a lawyer, but look how many law issues that he's had. He understood what this would look like if it got out, and he took the chance anyway.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think it's very reckless of him again.
Agreed. Hey, folks, we've had on author of Crisis of Character, brand new book. A White House Secret Service officer discloses his firsthand experience with Hillary, Bill, and how they operate. Gary J. Byrne, former presidential Secret Service officer. Gary, thank you so much for being on the show. Best of luck on the book. And if you would hang on the line for a second, we'll
I will.
Folks, Inside Real Estate Sports and Entertainment. We'll see you next Sunday. We're out of here.